Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you, and it's Monday, which means it is once again time to check out some of your games in this week's viewer special. If you're new to the series or are just new to the channel in general, first of all, welcome. This is my favorite series we do on the channel, the viewer special, because we get to showcase really cool games from you all. It not only allows us to take a look at some decks and or builds that I might not normally have time to get to myself, but it's really nice to be able to just cheer each other on, show off the cool things we've been doing. It really just makes us feel more like a community coming together, which I love. It's great. If you're interested in getting in on this and submitting for the next viewer special, then you're going to want to head down to the description below. There's going to be an invite link to our Discord server, the Hexlexplex. Once you are in there, under the Master Duel section is a channel called Viewer Special Submissions. There you can drop your 9-digit player ID, so that way I can view your publicly saved replays. Please do make sure that your ID is entered correctly and that your replays are set to public. Now, if you have multiple different replays, that is totally fine with me. I think we're allowed up to 15 now. You can submit 15 different games. I'm A-okay with that. The only thing I ask that you don't do is submit the same game multiple times, but we don't really have an issue with that, so I don't suspect we will moving forward either. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I have to get to as far as like the opening spiel. The only other thing I guess is that we do only have time for so many games, of course. But like I said, I do this every single week. And I do go through and watch pretty much everything that's submitted, even if it doesn't end up getting featured on the video. So if you don't get featured, there's always the next week. And I probably watched your game all the same. So, all right, let's go ahead and start taking a look at your duels. Alright, our first game for this viewer special comes to us from Lampster, who is, I believe, submitting to the viewer special for the first time on YouTube, but we've actually watched plenty of their replays on live streams before. For those who don't know, I do weekly streams both here on YouTube and over on twitch.tv/hexlexlive. Make sure to sub here or follow/sub over there so that you're updated when those go live. But we have a very nice back and forth game here that I believe is going to be Blue Eyes versus Fiendsmith Control. It's a WCS qualifiers game, so unfortunately I can't look at the players' builds, but we're going to go ahead and enjoy this game all the same. Lampster says they started off with an unoptimal hand, but managed to persevere. So we're going to go ahead and see what this game ends up looking like. And I would agree that that's not the most optimal hand in the world. I suppose it could have been worse, though. We at least have the Ether Barrel to get our plays going here. Setting the Primite Lordly Load, of course, which we're going to flip up and activate in order to go for the Drill Beam. Now we're going to link off the Ether Barrel to summon the Spirits with Eyes of Blue. This, of course, is going to allow us to grab the Mausoleum of White, which we're not going to end up really using here, it looks like. To be fair, I don't think we really need to. Also, it could screw up our combo lines in the future because we wouldn't be able to summon off the... What is that normal spell called? The one that summons the Blue Eyes. I guess that one does summon from Graveyard as well, so that would actually be fine. But either way, we got the Majesty set up. We have the Drill Beam set up. We got a bunch of hand traps. This is actually, like... It's not ideal, but I will say this hand's not horrible, all things considered. Alright, they're leading with Kashtira Unicorn. We're going to throw out an Effect Veiler here that's going to get hit with the Called By, but to be fair, we would rather have the Veiler eat the Called By than the Maxi here. Alright, Unicorn's going to end up adding Birth. And now going to rip the Crimson Dragon from our extra deck is an interesting choice. To be fair, we have 2 of each of the Blue Eyes cards, so... Oh, this is Red Resonator. I might have selected the wrong game here, but, oh, we'll watch this one anyway. It's a 7-turn duel. Very nice back and forth with Red Resonator here. We're going to fire off the Maxi against their Bone Archfiend, and then flip up the Majesty as they go to use the Birth effect. So that way we get to pop the Birth, and then we don't lose out on any of the cards that are in our graveyard. Alright, so upon the Vision Resonator getting dumped, that's where we're going to end up using the Spheres F. That'll just bounce the Bone Archfiend, and then of course we also get to summon off the second effect of the Spheres. But it's going to be adding Crimson Gaia off the Vision Resonator. Alright, summoning Blue Eyes makes our Drill Beam live. Furthermore, we still have the Nibiru in hand, as well as the Dominus Purge, which is now going to get used on that Crimson Gaia that just got added. I like that we're being patient with our negates here, using the Drill Beam on the Soul Resonator as it goes to battle. Also, Yep, taking our opponent's last body off the board, meaning they can no longer extend into plays here. Top decking the Magnum Hut and getting to add Ether Barrel back to hand. It's funny because we're on the Blue Eyes variant, of course, of Primite, but it really feels like we're actually playing the control deck right now with the way our hand and plays have been looking. But, you know, we've got our opponent in a simplified game state, and there's a really popular concept in Magic the Gathering of aggro versus control, right? Like, there are aggro decks and control decks, sure, but in any given game, one player is the aggro player and one person is the control player. Someone's being, someone's on the back foot, the other one's pushing the game state forward, right? And so we're really in a game state where we are the one pushing things forward here, and we don't even need our big Blue Eyes combos to be able to do it. I say we're in a simplified game state because our opponent wasn't really able to do much of any plays following our disruption there, and if we can keep that control up, we can keep them in a state where they're not really able to do much of anything, and as a result, of course, we are able to keep applying pressure even without our big combos. Drill Beam was able to pretty sufficiently do that here as they went to go start their plays. Again, we are able to banish one of their monsters and stop them as a result. Getting to battle over the Crimson Resonator and smack them for their 3k here. Gonna pass back over to them. Yeah, Lampster's in no hurry to close out this duel, and I really don't think they need to be anyway. Ooh, Centurion cards in our opponent's deck as well. Because keep in mind, too, like, not only are we, like, sufficiently keeping control of the game with Drill Beam by itself, but we still have this Nib as, like, a, you know, panic button in case things go really, really wrong. And now here, even as we top deck the Maiden in White, as you can see, we don't even need it. We do not even need it in order to close out this duel. So that is awesome. That is very cool. Yeah, that's not the game I don't think you intended to show, Lampster, so sorry if you didn't want that one shown. But it was a very, very good game, and I think it very well demonstrated how, you know, a lot of players who really aren't into combo-y decks will kind of always, not always, but sometimes say, like, oh, you know, the combo players always have to follow the spreadsheet, there's nothing they can do without them. But I mean, that's so unbelievably far from the truth on pretty much any level of play, from casual to competitive. And this is just like a prime example of how a lot of the time, even when you're playing an established combo meta deck, you do have to divert from the script and, you know, play a different game, so to speak. So very, very good stuff. Thank you, Lampster, for that game. We still, of course, have a couple more. Let's go into the next one. All right, our next game comes to us from Dr. Maxis, who's got a great name that I felt like just needed to be said that way. Doc Maxis here has got a pretty cool pile deck that we're going to be taking a look at here. It's going to be Infernobles, which is a deck that I haven't visited in quite some time. Despite my combo guide for it being surprisingly popular, I was going through my videos, like sorting by views recently, and I was kind of surprised how many views that one had, considering I don't really play Infernobles at all anymore. It's been a very, very long time since I have, but this is going to be the Millennium variant. Now, of course, Golem is about to go to 1, so the Millennium Engine in this deck does have fewer starters, but this is also definitely a deck that does not super hard rely on the Millennium Engine as much as something like Snake Eye or Crystron did. Not that either of those decks need the Millennium Engine to be functional, but you know what I mean. The Millennium Engine does a lot more for engines, or for decks like that, than it usually does for something like Infernoble. But there are a couple of interesting factors here. For one, the Millennium Engine does have a warrior monster. The Millennium Shield is actually a warrior. It's really easy to forget that, but on top of that, they do also actually have an equip spell in the form of Grief Tablet. And the Grief Tablet can actually add a Wedju card from deck to hand, and that includes, of course, the Millennium Field spell, Wedju Temple. So it's not even just that the Millennium Engine provides a solid amount of, you know, bodies and stuff for the Infernoble deck, but there are actually a couple of inherent points of synergy within this strategy as well. All right, and then our opponent is going to be on Rescue Ace. They're going to be on Fiend Smith Rescue Ace, and I suspect that moving forward, this is probably going to be one of the best ways to play Snake Eye. As we discussed in a very recent video, that Millennium feeds with Snake Eye post-Oak ban is really not worth playing anymore, I don't think, in the grand scheme of things. But alright, let's go ahead and check this one out. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've actually played Infernoble. That's one of those decks that I actually do enjoy playing. It just... What do you... Because I just love playing every deck if possible. So a lot of the times there are a bunch of decks that end up slipping through the cracks. Centurion was another one actually I was thinking about recently that I was like, how have I not played Centurion in like a couple of months now? Just because there's so many decks, right? But... Alright, we're going first here, leading with the Temple, placing the Foodalist to go for the Seng Engine. We get the Golem as well. Normally, opening Wedju Temple isn't super ideal if you're on the Millennium Engine for something like Snake Eye, but for this deck, it really doesn't matter nearly as much, especially because we are playing the Shield, and we could go for that if we needed to as well. But here we're using our Millennium monsters to make Little Knight in combination with the Warrior monster that we normal summon, allows us to go for the Isolde, which of course is enough to go for a pretty much full combo here. Adding the Fire Flint Lady, getting back the Phoenix Gearblade, summoning the Augear. Augear of course gets to dump Turpin. We get to equip the Phoenix Gearblade, which means we can summon the Turpin. And then from there we can go for the Dempsey at this point, right? Most of the time that I played this deck was actually before Dempsey came out, so... Yeah, we Dempsey for the Roland, and then we can special the Roland. Getting Living Fossil. This is Prom Princess, right? Yeah? Yeah. And then I think we're going to use the Living Fossil for a 4, and is that how we're going to make the level 5 Roland? Oh no, we're doing that right now with the Prom Princess. Duh. Okay, with Turpin plus Roland. Oh, no, not Roland, right, you make Angelica, which summons Roland. You can tell you can tell it's been a while since I've played this deck. I forgot you don't actually need to Synchro Summon for the level 5 Synchro Roland, because Angelica is a broken monster. It's just such a good card. Alright, Angelica F also gets to dump the Gearblade. Living Fossil is going to revive the Turpin. No, it does revive the Turpin. Oh, and then that's how we go for the... Okay, so I was right in thinking that we need the Living Fossil to go for a Synchro. I just forgot which Synchro it was. See, these combos still live in the back of my brain somewhere. Sometimes it takes a while to get them out. Of course, to be fair, I really am just following along here. If you had to sit down and make me do this from memory, I would have probably fumbled a lot harder. Well, fumbled in general. Doc Maxis isn't fumbling this line. From what I can tell here, it looks very standard to me. We got the Link 1 Charles, we get for the Spell Trap Negate. We got the Gear Freed for the Monster Negate. We're about to make our next Link 1 Charles for another Spell Trap Negate. The Isolde should have also set up Angelica's Angelic Ring in the graveyard that'll get equipped shortly here for another Spell Negate. There it is, yep. Yeah, very, very standard Infernoble inboard. Alright, opponent's going to lead off with the Engraver, going for the Fiend Smith's Tract. It's always rough when they lead pitch Engraver because you never really know what deck you're playing against. It could be literally anything, right? Like, it's easy to see that in Assume Snake Eye, which is probably one of the better assumptions, right, given how prominent it is pre-Oak ban, but... You know, I mean, it could be Sprite, it could be White Forest, it could be, you know, Rescue Ace, again, it could be, you see Engraver, it could be just about anything. Punk, yeah. Alright, we get to pop the Hydrant here. It looks like they have a Preventer in hand, which they're going to try to summon here. We have the Gear Freed to negate that, though, leaving them with only 3 cards, and we do still have, I believe, 1 more Spell Trap Negate. Now, they do get to summon the Hydrant, unfortunately, but we do get to Promethean Princess them, so... It's not like they can really do much with the Hydrant here. Sending the Turpin from deck to banish the Angelica, so that way we don't lose out on that. She'll come back during our end phase, summoning the Prom Princess. But they also had Turbulence in hand. They actually just hard drew the Turbulence, so that's pretty insane. The Hydrant there ended up being actually just bait for them. They didn't even need it to resolve in order to pop off here. Now, Turbulence gets to set 4. And all of a sudden our position doesn't look quite as good as it did before. I mean, I think we're still in a fine spot, but... I mean, this is also what I mean a lot of the time when I say that, you know, there are a lot of players who will, you know, say that Infernoble or a similar combo deck playing out its turn 1 is basically an auto win. And I do understand that it's a huge uphill battle, but this is a good example of how you can really fight through a hand like that. It's not impossible. I mean, granted, our opponent's hand, I don't know though, was it even really that good? Like, they had Engraver, Hydrant, Preventer, Turbulence, which, to be fair, there are a lot of scenarios where that hand wouldn't really be that great. A lot of the time, you really don't want to open Turbulence or Preventer, or sometimes even Hydrant. You'd rather just open Airlifter and then a bunch of, like, hand traps, right? Alright, so draw phase are going to pop off with all of their back row here. Looks like we're negating the Angelica and then extinguishing it. And then they're taking the Promethean Princess as well. Alright, we're going to go for the Neospace Conductor, which lets us go for Aqua Dolphin here. We're going to check the last card in hand, which ends up being the Fabled Lurie. It's a Destroy, not a discard, which means it won't be summoned. We get Special Fire Flint Lady and then equip the Roland here. Moving to battle phase, we're going to swing over the Typhoon, which gives us our effects of our big monsters back. Gearfried can actually equip the Promethean Princess here, which triggers the Charles effect in order to pop. Getting to battle here, and then go for the Snake Eyes Doom Dragon. And is this going to be a 4 material Appaloosa? Going into our opponent's 0 cards in hand and no cards on board. Devastating. 4 monster negates plus the spell trap. Actually, 5 monster negates because we have the Gearfried. And the spell trap negate off the Charles. And the Angelica's Angelic Ring spell negate as well. Just a casual, you know, 4 points of interaction going into our opponent's turn. I say 4 points because I consider Appaloosa 1 point of interaction. Because you can only do it once per chain. Which matters, I mean, that's not going to matter in this scenario, but for a lot of scenarios that does actually matter. I've said it before on the channel, there are a lot of times where I only kind of count Appaloosa as 1 monster negate and not however many materials it was made with. Because a lot of the time between, like, triple tack and just getting battled over or getting, like, ogred or something, like, you are really, you get off 1 negate if that a lot of the time in my experience, but yeah, there we go. That was a very, very solid game. That was scary for a moment. It looked like the Rescue Ace player was going to break through our board, but the Infernoble inboard uninterrupted is definitely quite strong, enough so that we were able to push through the 4 back row that Turbulence set and claim the dub for ourselves. All right, got one more game that we're going to finish off here. Let's go into that last one. And our final game comes to us from Tuzio. Tuzio, who's been on Fiendsmith Control for quite some time, has a game against Branded, which I'm quite eager to see. These two kind of control style decks go back and forth. Of course, Fiendsmith Control, the control is in the name. And this looks like a very, very solid build here. Got the 3 Roar, because we have the 2 normal monsters here, so that definitely makes sense to me. Also, Roar for Adipity is like your best turn 1 play by far in Fiendsmith Control, so I definitely understand when to max out on that. Yeah, build looks very, very solid here. Multiple Desiree in the extra deck is interesting. I'm assuming that's because we're, like, we can send 1 off the Fiendsmith and Paradise and then still have another one to be able to potentially go into. Definitely let me know how that's been doing, the multiple Desiree, because that's very interesting tech there. I love the multiple Nibs. Nib is very, very good in this meta. Overall, looking like a very, very solid build. And then our opponent, again, is going to be on Branded, and yeah, it looks like they have a fairly solid standard build, all things considered. All right, let's go ahead and check this duel out. Yeah, I very much consider Branded to be a control deck. It's interesting because, like, it can OTK, but, like, I don't know. It's not necessarily a thing about control decks that they can't OTK. They just typically don't as often. Now, this is the kind of going first hand I'm used to seeing when I play Fiendsmith Control. Just a bunch of hand traps. This is why I say that, like, I do like the 3 Roar in this deck, because if you are going first, you really do a lot of the time want to be able to pop off with something, right? Even if it's just a 3 material Appaloosa and nothing else. You know, for a lot of other decks nowadays, that would only be like a half an end board, but for Fiendsmith Control, you know, that's definitely more than fine. Alright, here they're going to start by dumping the Saronir. We're going to eat the, we're just going to eat, rather, the Called By here. They're going for Albion Shrouded Dragon to dump the Retribution. And then setting 2 and passing. So it looks like our opponent didn't have the best opening hand as well, which is pretty good for us. Quim's going to dump Albaz. We have another Call By, so we're not really concerned about that. Also, Baldrake could eat the Albaz here, which looks like that's exactly what we're going to do. Opponent's going to chain the Maxi, and good not chaining the Call By. Very, very good. That is something that I think a lot of players would have done, either reflexively or just because they didn't want to give their opponent 1 draw. But we're not going to do any more special summoning, so giving them 1 draw here is completely fine. Alright, they're going for the Gold Sark here, banishing, I'm assuming, the Tragedy. Yep, and Tragedy F is going to add Alibur here. And then, of course, Alibur is going to try to go for the Branded Fusion. We do have the Valor to negate that, though. Let's see if our opponent's got a Call By face down. Even if they do, we still have, of course, Maxi and Nib and our own Call By to disrupt the Branded line. Looks like they don't really have much of a response here. Oh, interesting. Wait, they're going to Droplet now? Now, that's a curious decision on their part, because what they could have done is they could have chained Droplet to Valor, sent the Alibur, and that would have been a much more effective dodge on their part. Because here, instead, they tried to use Droplet to send the Saronir from hand and use that to dump the Branded Fusion, which eats our Call By here. But also, moreover, they could have just saved the Sar. Like, if they had done it, you know, Droplet send Alibur in response to Valor, they could have also had the Saronir in hand still to use as, like, a body or disruption. So, that's a noticeable misplay. Oh, they actually just had the 3rd Saronir as well. Okay. Yeah, that is. I do think that is a misplay on our opponent's part, though. They definitely should have. If you were going to Droplet there was no reason not to just chain it and send Alibur. It looks like they're going to Ash Blossom our Maxi in response to them summoning their Saronir. But that's not even a huge deal, because now they're out of cards in hand. So, like, yeah, we get to draw off Maxi, and yeah, they get to send Branded Fusion, but they're out of cards in hand. We do still have the Nibiru, which I think Nib versus Branded is one of the more skill-testing points of interaction. Like, maybe not here necessarily as much because our opponent has so few resources, but when you're in this kind of scenario and your opponent still has, like, a few cards in hand, it's like... That's why I was saying earlier that it actually is a bigger deal than it looks that our opponent doesn't have anything left in hand. Them going for Albion Sanctifier does make me a little bit anxious, but this, yeah, looks like a great time to drop the Nib here. Giving them the token, and then passing back over to our turn. Albion gets to set Branded Banishment here, and then Branded High Spirits gets to activate, adding itself back to hand. But it looks like that's all the graveyard effects they've got for their main phase 3, as we're going into our turn. Top decking the Ether Barrel is a pretty good top deck here. I think one of the better ones, aside from maybe like a Fiendsmith card or something. But they're immediately going to go for the Branded Banishment, summoning the Albion, the Sanctifier Dragon here. Flipping up the Lordly Load, they're going to chain with Brightest Blazing Branded King, which I should have noted in their list isn't the most typical, but... Alright, looks like they're taking our Baldrake and giving us Maxi. We get to link off the Ether Barrel plus the Maxi, going for the Moon of the Closed Heaven. Ah, this is how we're going to pivot into our Fiendsmith line. I was wondering what we were going to do about this Nib token. I was kind of looking at it like, but no, we're good here because we're going for Requiem. Requiem, of course, for Lacrima. Lacrima dumping Graver. Graver gets the Summon, putting back the Moon. Now we get to equip the Requiem, and then we can send away this Nib token. Not have to worry about it anymore. I'm trying to think if there's a reason we would do Sanctifier instead, but nah, yeah, the token's just too scary. Gotta take care of it now. I mean, 12,000 plus attack is just, yeah, you can't leave that alone. Alright, here's Sequence. Sequence gonna fuse for 2, so we're going for the Fiendsmith's Lacrima here. Is this gonna be Chaos Angel, I wonder? We could bring back Lacrima and then... It is gonna be Chaos Angel, yep. Chaos Angel acting not only as a way to banish, but also 8 towers as well. Now, Albion Sanctifier is untargetable, so we can't get rid of that, but we do get to get rid of the Branded Lost here, which is not nothing at all. Oh, and that's how we're going to get rid of Sanctifier. We're going for The white woman jump scare. All right. Going into our opponent's turn here, we do have a minor form of disruption with the Underworld Goddess Graveyard Negate, and that's actually going to be enough. Wow. Opponent's going to concede in the face of our white woman. But good stuff. Thank you, Tuzio, for sharing that game. Thanks to everybody who shared this week. We had a lot of really nice back and forth games this week. Yeah, good stuff. Love to see it. But yeah, as always, if you want to submit, feel free to do so in the link in the description below, over on the Discord server, the Hex Lexplex. Love to see you there. But that's going to do it for now. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of the video. It's a great way to support smaller channels like myself. Let's move on to our outro so we can thank our supporters who are YouTube members and patrons as well. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.